Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to New Frost Morphs. We're here for part 2. Thank you everyone for your love and support over this week's videos. Today we've got a lovely family with us and we're having a beautiful day together. We just had a wonderful barbecue.
Oh, it was lush.
Thank you so much for bringing that fresh fruit salad. It was absolutely perfect. And I heard the burgers went down quite well.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, they were amazing.
So when families come, we like to do a little bit of entertaining. So if you do come and want to spend a few hours with us, we'll put on a nice barbecue lunch for you guys. And we're also planning to clean the pool, and next time you come, bring your Speedos.
Yeah.
We'll
wear Speedos.
You don't have to wear Speedos.
I wouldn't let
But we've got a swimming pool in this nice hot weather. It would be nice to have a dip. So this family's very kindly offered to help me because of my hip problem. They're very kindly offered to help me with my fence and swimming pool, and I'm very appreciative of that. And thank you so much for offering to help us as a family.
No problem.
It's really kind of you. Now, on top of that, if that wasn't enough, I've been blessed with I'm going to treat it as a late birthday present. And I've got here a little tub of eggs, and you're probably wondering what's in these eggs. Well, we've brought one of the parents of the. Is this one of the parents of the eggs, or is this likely to be?
They will be parents.
They will be the parents. So, now, Evelyn, you've come and you can actually perhaps introduce this to us. What the species is, where it's from.
So they're from Australia and they are the Maclay spectres.
Okay, so they're from Australia and they're called the Maclay spectres.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And would you like to perhaps show us, is it okay to take them out of the cage?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I can.
So it's actually from the stick insect family, but it's similar to a praying mantis, or is it different to a praying mantis?
It's different. They're closer to normal stick insects.
Okay, fine. That's lovely.
These don't
And I understand the boys live till 9 months and the girls about 18 months?
That's correct, up to
Yeah, yeah.
Try to see if I can take.
Okay. So let's have a little look and see what we've got going on there. And it looks just like a spiky leaf, doesn't it? So it's good for camo. What's the habitat that they like to live in? What's their favourite place to live?
eucalyptus forests.
Eucalyptus forests.
Yeah.
Lovely. And food-wise, I understand that you can feed them brambles and bramble leaves, is it?
That's correct. Brambles and rose leaves are quite common for them, yeah.
Bramble and rose leaves, lovely.
And as you can guess, eucalyptus.
Oh, that's fantastic.
This is the male one.
That's the male. So the male's the smaller.
Yep.
What a beautiful example. And would it come on to me at all?
Yeah.
And I understand
Should do.
the males can fly, can they?
They certainly
Yep.
can.
And what about the girls? Can they fly?
No,
And
So it's up to the boys to find their woman, is it?
it is.
Do you know what? That is unbelievable. I've never held a stick insect before in my life. Sorry?
dancing.
Yeah, it's dancing with me, isn't it?
Because it shakes its thing.
Yeah. You can see Daddy behind the camera. Matt, thank you for doing the filming today.
Yeah.
And thank you to all the children here for being part of the video. It's very kind of you to be in it.
No problem.
Now, the female's much larger. Is she best to leave in there, or should we?
I can try to get her out, but it depends on if you'll let her legs get off.
Do you want me
Yeah.
to try and coax her for you?
Can try.
This is just amazing. I'm really enjoying this experience. So,
really?
yeah. So the eggs that you've given me, there's quite a few there. I'm guessing that they produce a lot of eggs because not all of them make it.
That's correct.
And what would you say percentage-wise would probably make it? Would you say 5–10% if you're lucky?
Out in the wild, yeah. Maybe in captivity, possibly 80% of them.
Okay.
80.
Wow. There's the female coming out now.
Trying to.
And apparently that they'd like room temperature in the house, so you can get away with probably what, 20, 24,
No.
22?
20 to 24. They're
20
quite
to
happy
24,
with-
yeah. So that
They can handle a couple of degrees below and a couple of degrees above.
And so is this one of your breeding pairs you've got?
The males kind of just cling on to any female,
Okay.
but
Can you have one stud male going to several girls then if you wanted to?
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have to have more girls to boy ratio, or can they do okay one-on-one?
I think they can do okay one-on-one, can't they? I mean, to be honest with you, we just sort of see them having special cuddles or eating. That's all they seem to do all day, every day.
That's amazing.
You
And you
could
just
potentially have more females to males, but I wouldn't recommend too many males to too few females.
Okay. And you just put in a water bowl and substrate. And what do you use for substrate in there normally?
We use like the cocoa fibre normally.
Cocoa fibre, yeah. And I can
They
see.
can just have kitchen roll. They don't have to have anything in particular.
Do they need humidity as well?
Yeah, sprayed. We try and mist them daily, ideally.
Mist them daily, and so humidity of between what, 70 and 80, or would you say less?
Yeah, 70 is good.
So very
70
similar
is
to ball pythons, really.
correct.
But the temperatures must be lower than the ball python, so you're looking at probably what, degrees Fahrenheit. You don't really want to go over 80, 82.
Yeah, I would
So
say
between
so.
72 and 82 probably would be a safe range on the
We
Fahrenheit.
work mostly in Celsius, so so I'd say the highest you'd ever want to go up to really is 28, but they can handle up to 30 as an extreme.
Right.
But that's not constant exposure, that's just heat
Yeah.
spikes. And then ideally you wouldn't really want to go below 18 to 20.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to this species coming in. We're going to get a little viv for them. We'll see how many of these babies hatch out. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful and for sharing the eggs with me too. It's lovely. So I'll let you put that girl back. She's got an upturned tail. She almost looks like a scorpion, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's one of the things that they do, and I think their defence mechanism, Matt will have to correct me and tell me if I'm wrong here, is where they've got the spikes on their tails, they'll use their tails to hammer things in the
We can
wild.
probably just like go around if he wants to.
Okay. And they're presumably non-venomous.
No, non-venomous.
Yeah. Oh, they're just incredible. My grandson would absolutely love all this. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. And
He'll be ringing us in a few months going, I've got about 5,000 of them.
how long do they take to hatch, out of interest?
So if they produce eggs pathogenically, it can take up to 9 months. But if they're bred and the eggs are fertilised by a male,
Yeah.
it can be around about 3 months.
So 3 months. And these are probably, what, 1 month in the system so far?
Yeah, you've got a variety of different ages in there, so it's
Okay.
anyone's guess as to when they decide to come out.
Great.
Yeah, like the female ball pythons, they can decide that they can have their own babies.
Yeah, very, very clever. And I'm guessing that how big do the babies need to get before you put them in a viv?
I mean, you can work them up in sweet jars, and you do get various different size bibs and enclosures, little terrariums.
Yeah.
But they can be kept in most things as long as there's plenty of ventilation and air holes.
Okay.
And then it's a case of, so the terrarium they're in at the moment is just for transport. So
Yeah.
you could put babies in there, but you wouldn't keep these guys in there.
So
Once they're adult of that size, you'd need one quite considerably larger than that.
So are we looking the size of the table? Or?
Yeah, that would be quite comfortable for them.
Okay. Yeah. And you put plenty of enrichment and clutter in there to keep them happy.
Yeah, they're quite happy with just a lot of brambles and various different types of leaves to munch on.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the gift, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's really kind of you. So we're going to move into the second part of the video now. So I don't know whether we could actually, perhaps, if you want to take those, I'll put my eggs over here for now. And
Take them over there.
Nat's brought in a little thing here which is good for enrichment. We were talking on the last video about using pegs for ball pythons. Now this particular peg has a couple of areas that you can screw into, and then you can screw those safely into your viv, and you've got several made up on your viv, and the snake loves to climb through and above them all.
Yeah, I mean, with Noodle, as you know, overprotective snake mum for first time snake owner, I had hot hide, cold hide, and climbing and everything else. And I did some research, and a lot of people don't realise that actually ball pythons are semi-arboreal.
Absolutely.
And Noodle has just proved that, because when given the option and the temperatures are perfect, she chooses to sleep in the trees. So she's always climbing, she's always exploring, because in the wild obviously they'd be finding sort of like birds and things from the trees, but she loves climbing, absolutely loves climbing.
That's fantastic. Now the other interesting thing is when they did a study in Africa about what the food they're eating, they actually studied the scientists that went into the wild. They extracted some of the poos that they'd left behind, and they did tests on those poos to see what it was made up of. And you know, there was a percentage of them made up of birds,
Yeah,
as well as rats.
I can
And
imagine.
so I think I totally agree with you. I think that these are semi-arboreal. They do climb. They do like enrichment, and I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. Creating these outside climbing spaces,
Yeah.
supervised, is wonderful.
The
I think-
customised cat tree.
Absolutely. And as we came out of the barn, we've been looking at setting up a rack system for Matt and Nat, because they want to get into breeding. They also discovered that my daughter Emily had actually disregarded one of her cat climbing
Yes, and
and
the
you
big
said
cat trees.
cat trees. Now we could probably convert that into a snake climbing area
Yes,
and
yes,
take inspiration from
absolutely.
yourself. So that would be lovely. So that's really wonderful. Now, Nat, last time we spoke, you said that you had a few questions that you wanted to bring.
Yes.
And if you want to fire out and let me know any questions, and I'll do my level best to answer them. This is designed mainly for beginners who, and also I'd say people that have only been in the hobby for a short period.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we get baffled by science. I try and do my best to kind of explain it in as simple terms as I can.
Yeah.
But I would probably use my snakes to help me on that process, so you can understand when you ask for genetics. I'll probably show you an example of recessive, an example of a dominant gene, and then we can talk
That
about
would be
it.
amazing.
Okay.
Because, like I said before, there's so many forums with all of these questions on individually, and I think if it wasn't for having yourself and a husband with experience having had snakes before, I would be still very, very confused and wondering what the hell I was doing.
Okay.
So I'm very grateful, and I just thought that these are the questions that I've hounded you with, that I'm sure there's other people like me that are also posting everywhere asking them as well.
Okay, well,
So-
we'll do our best to answer those for you.
Perfect. So question number 1 is, when it comes to getting your first snake, what should you consider? And I guess it can lead on to question number 2 as well, which will be, with how would you set up your enclosures? What should the temps and humidity be, and why?
Okay, so I think the first thing is, when you are thinking about getting into ball pythons, I think you've got to think about how much space you have in your home.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think, right, I want a ball python or they want a snake, and they don't realise necessarily how big some of these snakes can go. Now with
Yeah.
a ball python, they last and they can live for up to 25 years if they're looked after, but they can grow up to 6 or 7 feet long, and they can be up to 4,000 or 5,000 grams. Now, compare that with, say, a boa constrictor or a larger snake, that makes them very popular for families because it's a smaller space that they need. You still need a 4-foot viv for a fully grown adult,
Yeah.
but you can get away with a much smaller space with a ball python than you can with, say, a boa constrictor or a larger snake. So I think the ball pythons are actually becoming much more popular because families can actually accommodate them for space, and it's
Yeah.
important that they do have the space because obviously they need to stretch, they need to move, they need to breed, they need to have enrichment. So my recommendation would be, first of all, look at the space you've got, and also look at the resources that you have as well, because they need feeding literally once or twice a week. So you've got to make sure you've got enough in your finances to look after their food.
Yeah.
Now the nice thing is, a rat can cost £2 or £3 a week, so it's not going to break the bank. So I don't think that's a major issue.
Yeah.
Cocoa husk I use, I think it's fantastic. We use Viper bedding, which is this one here.
You get those massive blocks, don't you?
Yeah, we get a big block, and then we got a video on how to prepare this, and we basically put them in a big. This will go 5 or 6 times the size. So once you add warm water to this, it'll expand, and then you've got your cocoa husk to go. And it's important to make sure that you get the right substrate. And then the other considerations are: do you want a male or a female?
Yep.
Now, if you're going to get into breeding, I'd recommend a girl first, and then the boy to follow.
Yep.
If you're getting into breeding and you've got someone like myself that has ready-made females and boys to go, that isn't so much of an issue. But when you're buying from a breeder, make sure they've got a clean facility, make sure they've got a good reputation, they've got good positive reviews,
Yep.
because there are 1 or 2 people out there that are not necessarily the best example of quality breeding and quality breeders. And I think there are 1 or 2 in the industry that you could end up buying a snake that might be sick, could be ill, it could affect the rest of your collection. So the choice of breeder is very important, that you have trust with that breeder, because you don't want to be inheriting a problem that that person isn't even aware of themselves, or they're passing a problem to you.
Yeah.
So that's
of course.
very important that you know, there are some reptile houses that you've got to be careful to avoid, because they might have mites, they might have RI issues, and you don't want to be going into a reptile centre where you can see that all the snakes are in their water bowls, they're covered in mites, because
Yeah.
you'll be inheriting a problem.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you buy from people that know what they're doing. They've got a really good regular cleaning routine. Our videos go out every week, people can see what we're doing.
And you also mentioned to me before about quarantine periods when you're getting snakes.
Absolutely.
That I don't think, to be honest with you, unless you had told me about that, I don't think I would have, in total honesty, I don't think I would have even considered it. I would have just been, I bought a brand new Viv,
Yep.
had everything all set up, good to go, new snake in, and wouldn't have even thought about a quarantine period.
Quarantine periods are very important, particularly as your collection gets bigger, because
Mm-hmm.
it only takes one snake to bring a mite into your facility.
Yeah.
So what we have is an 8-week period in quarantine. If they pass the 8 weeks with no issues, no mites, no RI, no runny poos, if they've got nice clear eyes and their bodies are in good shape, there's no skin rot or no rot on them. So what you're doing is you put them either on paper, or you can buy special bedding from Viper Bedding, which is a white bedding that allows you to see any mites, anything that might come off a snake. So you can still use like the equivalent to cocoa husk, but it's a white cocoa husk.
That's very clever.
And it's
isn't
really
it?
clever because it allows you to put that into quarantine. So there's another option. So after 8 weeks of quarantine, then your snake's ready to come into your collection, providing it's got a clean bill of health.
Mhm.
And it's well worth having a separate quarantine area. And it doesn't mean to say you have to dedicate a whole room to a quarantine area. You can have your quarantine area in a part of the garage or a part of the house, but away from your main collection.
Yeah.
And also, when you clean your snakes, make sure you clean your quarantine snakes at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
clean all the ones that are in your collection first.
Yeah, because you're not going to want to touch something contaminated and bring it back to
Exactly.
your collection yourself, are
Absolutely. So do your quarantine snakes at the end of your cleaning process.
you? And
Always.
same,
Not
I'd imagine, with feeding as well.
feeding, everything like that. Keep it as separate as possible.
And then, so that'll lead into, once your snakes are all out of quarantine and you want to set up your new enclosure, how would you set up a snake enclosure?
So you've got two choices. Some people like the Viv system. Some people like the tub system. Obviously, as a big breeder, we use the tub system, but we have set up Vivs for customers.
Yeah.
So we're pro Viv as well. We're not against Vivs. It's just much harder for a big breeder to have lots and lots of Vivs in the facility because obviously you've got more snakes.
Yeah.
And we know that ball pythons, they do like smaller spaces. We've had to move one of our boys into a smaller space because it went off food.
That was the one we bathed earlier, wasn't it?
And we bathed him earlier because he's been knocking his water bowl everywhere and he's getting tanned with cocoa husk now. But as long as you keep an eye on him, bathe him, clean him, we'll then put him back into a bigger space once he's getting into a good feeding habit.
Yeah.
And then we should be okay to go. But I would recommend probably for your hatchling, you'd probably want a Viv probably about this size.
Yeah.
And you've got a decent sized Viv on yours, haven't you?
Mine's huge.
Yeah, which is fine because it's full of clutter.
Yeah, it
You've got
is.
a couple of hides, one for the hot and cold spot. You need to give them a gradient. So whether you go Viv or Rub, they need a gradient. Our gradients start off at 88 at the hot spot, and they come all the way down to 78 on the cool spot. And the way you achieve that, that's in Fahrenheit. Obviously, you're working
Yeah,
in centigrade.
I'm working backwards in my head.
Yeah, you'd have to convert them into centigrade. I'm so used to the Fahrenheit that I haven't quite worked it out. But
Because I think I've got 25 as my ambient. That's just like the general
okay,
on mine.
no, that's good because I think 30, 31 is your hot spot, and
Third,
25
yeah,
is your
third,
cool
yeah,
spot.
yeah.
That's fine. So you have a gradient. The reason you have a gradient is because the snake is cold-blooded, and although it can use the water bowl and other things to kind of adjust itself, if you've got a gradient, it will move to the area it needs. So when it's eating a prey item, it moves onto the hot spot so it can digest the food in its tummy. And if you don't have that hot spot for them, then their digestion may be slowed, and it may cause stress for them, and they may regurgitate if
Yeah.
it's too cold for them. They might struggle. So then having a hot spot allows them to eat and get a better digestive system. The females I've got at the moment sitting on the hot spots are about to give me clutches. So they want 88 to 89 on their hot spot because that's the ideal temps to be able to grow on their babies, you see.
Yeah.
So that then the hot spot comes into its own. And then the cool spot's very useful because the boys and the girls like to cool down before they breed, because you find the girls build their follicles around their by wrapping around the water bowl.
Yeah.
So I recommend a large water bowl for the big girls so they can
Yeah.
cool down effectively. You get less slugs, and also having a large water bowl means that the hydration's better, the humidity's better. It's the surface area of the water bowl that affects the humidity. It's not the
Yes.
depth of the bowl. So the wider the surface area, the more humidity, and your cocoa husk doesn't have to be drenched in water to get the humidity then. So they're sitting on a dry bedding, but the water bowl's creating a lot of humidity.
See, I spray as well when I think it's been like a really, really hot day.
Spraying is fine, as long as you don't oversaturate the cocoa, because if you
Yeah.
oversaturate the cocoa, that leads to moulding,
Yeah,
and moulding can
okay.
lead to health issues, because if it's rolling around in mould, then that can lead, with stress levels, that can also lead to RI issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was because you've mentioned the cocoa fibre blocks. That was something else. I think that was like question 3 or question 4. So basically, there's lots of talk about different kinds of substrate online, and you use the cocoa block. So can you tell me why that's your bedding of choice? and what the benefits are.
Yeah,
of
there's
using
2 or 3 reasons for us using cocoa. Number one, Viper bedding is a high-grade cocoa, and it's been cleaned several times. It's been compacted so that when you actually use it, you're not dealing with dusty, dirty cocoa. You're dealing with something that's already been sterilised. Because the last thing you want to do is take on some cocoa husk that might have mites in it, or might have germs or insects or whatever.
Yeah.
So the cocoa that you use, go for a high reputable one. And Gav at Balls to You, who basically sells us this stuff, he's a top-end breeder in the UK, and he'll only use it if it's quality. So you have that confidence knowing that you're buying from someone that uses it himself.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be putting rubbish bedding on his own snakes.
No.
Since we've been using it, when we started off we were using paper, and it cost me £40 a month on paper, and I was spending nearly 500 quid a year just on paper. And now since we moved to cocoa husk, we're spending probably £200 every 3 months, but I'm getting less slugs. And slugs are infertile eggs, so the girls are giving me less slugs because I put them on cocoa, and there's a reason for that. Is because the cocoa is 2 or 3 inches up above the hotspot. Now if the hotspot has a spike and it goes over 91 or 92, you get infertile eggs, so they can then choose where they want to be. They can be on top of the cocoa, or they can go down for more heat.
Okay.
So that gives you a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to breeding, so that's another good reason to use it. There's some places in the world where the humidity is so high, to use cocoa would be not a good thing. So I have a friend in the tropics who will use paper, and he won't use cocoa because cocoa would just give him too high humidity.
I've noticed it smells a lot less as well. So there's like you obviously can't tell over a video, but it doesn't smell like snake and reptiles in here. You know, there's not that smell.
Well, we've done 2 things. We've got an extractor fan that's pulling out the stale air, and we've got an extraction fan pulling in the fresh air. But the cocoa husk also absorbs all the smells.
Yeah.
And it means that you're living in a much cleaner environment yourself.
It's so much easier to clean though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just got a nappy sack and I just go in and grab it and just
Spot cleaning, yeah.
slap a snake by accident. I'm so sorry.
Well, this is Giovanni. He's our G-stripe. He's a super pastel G-stripe.
I just bumped him on the nose.
But he's he's a lovely snake, and he won't mind that.
Oh, he's been amazing.
Yeah. So coming back to the cocoa, there's some other advantages to cocoa besides the breeding, the cleaning, spot cleaning. One of your questions was how often do you change your cocoa bedding?
Yeah. So the other question was, he's not talking to me now because I popped him on the nose. Where is it? Yeah. How often do you obviously like clean out and then it goes on to feeding?
Yeah. So cleaning, we clean every day. So Jared and I spend an hour a day in here, at least 3 hours in the weekend. And if you do cleaning regular and often, you haven't got a big task at the end of the year. Also, I mean, they don't want to be rolling in their poo. So as soon as they poo, and if you study the poo, if the poo's nice small pellet size and they're nice and firm, it's a good sign.
Okay.
If it's runny, wet and soggy and all over the shop, it means they've got diarrhea or some issue.
Yeah.
That means they've got a tummy bug or something going wrong. But you can treat them, and they should go into quarantine, take them out of your collection and then treat them. So the reason why some snakes have runny poos is because they've been fed too much too quickly, they're under stress, or the provider of your rats is producing rats that are not high enough quality, and they might be, they may be bringing bugs into the system.
Okay.
So it's very important. You're getting our rats from us.
Yeah.
So therefore you shouldn't have an issue because we've got a really high quality.
Well, I wouldn't get them from anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Because if it's like you said with the bedding, if you're feeding your snakes those rats, that's the ones that I want to be feeding my snakes.
And to us, we like that because we want them to transfer easily. And if you keep the parameters the same of what they used to here, your snakes are incredible. You just bought 2 snakes for me. Last week you bought a beautiful clown for me, and I said to you at the time, give it a couple of days to settle in and give it food. When you went to feed your other snake, who you've had for 3 months now,
4
months actually.
4 months.
Finn turned up around, the snake I sold you, and he wanted some food, so you offered him some food, and he actually eventually took, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
after 2 days of travel only as well. It was amazing.
No, it was 24 hours. It was
24
the
hours.
next day. Yeah, because we picked
Incredible.
him up on Father's Day, and it was on the Monday, and my husband just kind of wiggled it, and he was like, oh, I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, fine, I'll have it. And then just sort of went for it. But yeah, no, he was eating.
It's a good sign. If he eats that quick, honestly, that's a very good sign. Sometimes these snakes can take quite a while to get going on food after being moving. That tells me that, yeah, I'm so pleased. The other question you asked me was how often do we spot clean and go through the process of... So we spot clean every day.
Yeah.
And then the shed cycle is a good trigger to do a complete change.
Okay.
So every time they shed,
Yeah.
It's a good practice to do a complete cocoa change and clean everything out, deep clean.
Okay.
That's normally every 6 weeks on that one.
So the other thing is talking about because talking about how often you clean them. It's like, how often do they poo? I remember asking you because I was like, well, God, what's the snake poo gonna look like? So it's, how often should I feed my boy or girl? How often do you clean out the enclosure? And will my snake poo a lot?
So the poos.
They look like dog poos, don't they? Like really small dog poos.
Oh yeah, I mean some of my big girls that have 200-gram rats, they look like human poos. So I'm just going to prepare you for that when you get into breeding. You think to yourself, oh my goodness me, unbelievable. So to answer your question, we feed the boys once every 2 weeks that are adults. Every boy that's a hatchling gets a prey item once a week.
Yeah.
So when they're hatchlings and grow-ons, you feed them once a week, whether it's boy or girl. The girls get a meal every 10 days to 2 weeks as well, when they get to adult size. And the beautiful thing about that is that you actually get them to...
Sorry.
So you have to video
you
this.
Turn the camera
Go on,
around.
Dad, you have to video this. Callum's got a new snake that he's... That's a balancing act. So so what you do is when they get to adults, the boys feed every 10 days to 2 weeks. The girls every 10 days to 2 weeks, because it takes at least 5 days to start to digest the food.
Yeah.
If you keep piling on food all the time, you'll build up stress levels.
And you don't hold them for about 48 hours until
I don't
once
touch.
you can-
Yeah, I don't touch my snakes for a couple of days because they're digesting.
Yeah. Because that's something that I remember asking you, like,
Really?
how soon can I hold her after I fed her?
Yeah, best to let them digest first if you can.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you asked was, when it's breeding, the girls get once a week they get a food item and a bigger prey item, because once they start to build those follicles, they need extra food and they go into this ravenous stage of eating.
Yeah.
And even when they're
It's
not
like a
being
heavily
ed,
pregnant woman, isn't it?
absolutely, there's a craving for chocolate, isn't there?
3 minutes.
So you've got that too. Let's go on to the next question.
Okay, so the next question is, as a new snake owner, there's lots of talk about morphs online and it's all very confusing. What are the top 5 most common morphs and what do they look like?
So the top ones are the clown.
Yep.
So I can show you an example of a clown. That's a very popular one. It's a recessive trait.
So what do people mean by recessive?
So a recessive snake, let me just get this here out for you.
Just move this over here.
Here she is. This is one of our babies. She's a clown with quite a few genetics in her. We got 2 clowns out of that clutch. You can see why they're so popular, because they're so beautiful. Clown has the teardrop, and that's why it's called the clown. They have teardrops both in their eyes and also coming off.
That's the one Matt's in love
Yeah,
with.
Matt loves that. It's got a leopard in there. So these are beautiful. That's an example of a clown. That's one of the most popular recessives. So a recessive genetic is a gene that is hiding behind a dominant
Okay.
or normal. And that's why it's called recessive. It's hiding behind, like recess.
Okay.
And for a recessive genetic, you need to have 2 copies, one from each parent, come together. And when they hit together, you get what they call a visual representation of that genetic.
Yep.
So here we've got the father and mother through one copy of their clown to get a visual clown. Same with that one. Now if one of the parents threw the clown gene to the baby, but the other one was a het clown, only had one copy of the gene, it is a 50-50 chance of that going across.
So what does it mean by het as well? Because everyone's like, I always hear het for this and het for that, and what do you mean by when you say het?
So het basically means that you've got just one copy of that genetic. Okay. Whereas if you go for the homo, then there's 2. And so you've got het and homo. So homo, these are both homo because they're carrying 2 copies of the genetic.
Okay.
And homo meaning 2 coming together. And genus is basically when you have the 2 hets coming together, they forge together like a yoke. And it comes from a Greek word actually, the term. And the Greek word is to forge together. So when you have 2 genetics coming from each parent, they forge together. If one is a het that comes in and the other one doesn't bring the het across, then you're not going to get the visual representation. You've got to have both hets coming across, or both genetics coming across.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've only got 5 seconds, so I think we will continue this another time. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, Matt, for your help. We'll see you again. Bye-bye for now.